Hello, my fellow adventurers! This is Mloentje, and welcome back to Throne and Liberty. Guys, it's 2 days before the actual updates, Tier 3, with the rework of Tier 1 bosses that are now gonna drop Tier 3 items. We got a new co-op dungeons, we get the battlegrounds, achievements, we get housing. There's gonna be so much to talk about in 2 days. But today, they released or updated Questlog, and this means that all the weapons, all the armor, and all the new jewelry, yes, new jewelry as well, is basically in Questlog, and that means we can start theory crafting. But before we can theory craft, we need to look at what actually is coming to the game. This is exactly what we are gonna do today, guys. So I'm gonna go to Questlog, and we're gonna look over all of the weapons, every armor piece, and then I'm basically gonna tier craft on my own and show you the healer builds that I am gonna try to get together in tier 3. So yeah, without further ado, let's go check what they're gonna drop for us, guys, in tier 3. Okay, warning in advance, guys, this might become a long video because there's gonna be a lot to look at if we want to look at everything, right? So yeah, this is kind of the build, PvP heal build that I have right now equipped with all the items that I have now equipped. If you actually were a little bit interesting about the healing build that I've been rocking in tier 2. I've not been lucky with the nebula items or with the cordy ones, so I'm still using invigorating salvation on my 40 overheal. Basically the hot that I can place on everybody with clay salvation or generous rage, right? So yeah, this is the gear that I am rocking. So let's go look at what is in the game, guys. So first off, we got swords. The sword and shield, Asriel's soulless swords. That has damage reduction 100% plus 100 when using shield survival techniques. Okay, wisdom, strength, mana regen. Interesting. We got ancient demonic beast, ivory blade, usable when affected by collision, prone from ascending slash, ankle strike, desperate clash, ascending cleave, tempest strike, immediately removes bind, collision, fierce silence, sleep and stun, and attacks enemies within 3 meters for 100% of base damage, applies collision push. Cooldown 2 minutes. It says usable when affected by collision. So it's going to be something that you're going to need to activate, or it's going to activate on its own. When affected by collision, prone from ascending slash, like ankle strike, any mobility skill, right? Any CC that can be placed on you, basically, is what they're saying. You attack and attacks enemies within 3 meters. When affected by collision, prone from ascending slash, ankle strike, desperate clash, immediately removes. So if you get hit by one of those, immediately removes the binds, collision, fear, silence, sleep, and stun, and attacks enemies with 3 meters. That's actually pretty cool. 100% base damage is not a lot, but it's still pretty cool. And it's a push, so you can basically, anybody who attacks you, you can just clear the way for everybody around you. That's actually pretty cool. Chernobog. So yeah, we also instantly can see where this one is gonna drop. Upon using an annihilation slash, has an 80% chance to apply slow to 6 enemies within 5 meters for 3 seconds, then puts them to sleep for 6 seconds. Against players, duration is halved, cooldown 30 seconds. So every 30 seconds, if you use annihilation slash, you have an 80% chance to apply slow and put them to sleep for 3 seconds. Because against players, the duration is halved, right? So it's gonna be a slow for 1.5 seconds and a sleep for 3 seconds. Holy crap, I'm gonna need to build for sleep resist then. Slow resist, I don't really care, but sleep resist? Sleeping is bad. In the game at least. That's a pretty interesting number. Dexterity, strength, hits, critical hits. That kind of implies that they kind of thinking this might be more for a damage build then, instead of a real shield build. Well, critical hits definitely good for PvP as well. You kind of want to have those up, else you're not gonna hit anything. Cornelius shock on hit with provoking roar creates a 4-meter radius explosion after 3 seconds, dealing 400 of the base damage to targets within the area. Reduces shield block chance of targets hit by the explosion by 50% for 5 seconds. It's an anti-tank. On hit with provoking roar creates 4-meter explosion. Kind of, and then lowering the shield block. That means anti-tank, right? Perception strength, max health, weaken chance. Okay, interesting. Nurma. So we got this sword from Nurma as well. Has 70% chance to apply collision push to a target upon using shield strike. So an extra collision push. Collision chance 200, max health 975, perception wisdom. I don't really get the wisdom though. Do you build as a tank? Do you build wisdom? I thought it was like gonna be perception, dexterity, strength, something like that. Not real sure. Maybe do the cooldown speed that you want to have like at least a minimum for the more cooldown speed. And then Supreme Blade of Resistance, and that should be the last one. So there's also going to be tier 3 resistance gear, resistance weapons in here. Okay, pretty interesting. And we also need to learn this, what the weapons can do, to know how we need to build versus the resists, right? That are coming with tier 3 for my healer build. So definitely great that I'm going over this. So Greatswords. We've got Addendus Cinderhulk Greatsword. Now, already heard a little bit about this, or about Greatswords, not specifically this one. So when attacking a Greatsword, increases base damage by 0.4% of 1,000 of current health up to 36,000 health. So 36 times 4%. That's going to be 3, that's 12, times 10, that's going to be, that's 1.2, that's 12, and then 6 times 4 is 24, so that's going to be 14.4%. 14.4% increase in base damage. Because it's percentage, it's not a flat amount. That's actually pretty huge. A base attack increase of 14.4%. 24.4%, right? Was it 14? 14.4. 14.4. It's actually pretty good. That's actually pretty good. That's actually pretty huge. Dexterity, strength, max health, critical hits, all good traits for, and especially the max health increase because you want to go for that 36,000, right? Yeah, definitely interesting. Might be one that I go for my melee build. Depending on what the rest is going to bring. Junoboat's Void. So yeah, Junoboat is dropping one as well. When hitting an enemy at 15% health or lower with a Greatsword skill, increases shock and stun duration by 1.5 seconds. So you kind of want to shock them. You kind of want to stun them at 50%. And then hit them with a skill. So if you stun them, Greatsword stun, that's a skill as well. So if you basically stun them below 50%, the stun or the shock is gonna, so you want to use the abilities that actually apply shock or apply stun, because then if you hit them below 50% with that, it's gonna last 1.5 seconds longer and disables item use for 3 seconds. So you won't be able to do potions. Oh yeah, potions. Perception, strength, hits, stun chance. And that's pretty interesting. It does sound PvP. Mordekai's Thunderbolt. So Mordekai's is gonna drop a sword. When applying shock or stun, has a 50% chance to dealing 600 base damage. Effect chains up to 2 times to other enemies within 10 meters. So they're gonna get like, you do a hit, and the hit has a 50% chance to deal 600% base damage. But it can chain up to 2 times to other enemies within 10 meters of the target. Amplifying damage by 50% with each chain. Amplifying damage even. So if it does chain, because it's only a 50% chance, right? That you apply the actual 600% base damage increase. If it then chains once, because it can chain twice, it's gonna do 50% more for every, so that's 650, and the second chain is gonna be 700% base damage. That is really a lot. Okay, dexterity, wisdom, hit chance, cooldown speed. Okay, cooldown speed, interesting. Silver Reaper, Judgment, Greatsword. On heavy attack has an 80% chance to silence a target for 5 seconds, cooldown 15 seconds. Yeah, this one I heard about. So silence every 15 seconds if a Greatsword user does a heavy attack on me. 80% chance to silence me for 5 seconds. A stun for like 3 seconds is annoying. Not being able to cast anything for 5 seconds is really, really bad. That's really, really bad. Holy crap. Attack speed, hit, strength, perception. Okay. Supreme Broadsword or resistance. So yeah, that's going to be the resistance one. Dexterity, health, max health, regen. Basically, people don't go for this because you want the perks, right? And yeah, there's of course also the heroic version. So you can probably take out the trait out of the tier 3s if you use Greatsword and then implement it that way as well, right? So yeah, that was the Greatswords, the Daggers. Let's check them out. Ancient Demonic Beast Bone Dagger. Each attack with Vampiric Strike has a 70% chance to deal a fixed damage equal to 400% of the base damage. Yeah, each attack with Vampiric Strike. I presume because it says each attack with Vampiric Strike, that Vampiric Strike does multiple hits. Right? So if it's 2 hits or 3 hits that you do with Vampiric Strike, you basically have 3 times or 2 times chance to deal, 70% chance to deal fixed damage equal to 4% of the base damage. 4% of the base damage is 179. So 4 times, that's gonna be 500, 4, 7, gonna be 759 times 5 times 4. It's times 4. That's a lot. That's a lot. That's a lot of damage, guys. That's a lot of damage. Cooldown speed as well on this one. Goes daggers, so they're gonna drop daggers as well. When attacking a target below 50% health with a dagger at night, increases critical damage by 20% for 3 seconds. When attacking a target below 50% health with a dagger during the day, increases critical hit chance. Okay, so depending on which time you play, you're gonna get a big boost, but it's so situational that, well, if it's night, you can swap out some runes, right? To get more criticals that way. And then during the day, you can swap out the criticals for the heavy attacks. And that way, like, level them out and it gives you a good boost. Dexterity, strength, critical hit, 160, attack speed. Actually, pretty good stats on that one. Pretty interesting perk. Minzrock on hits with daggers has an 8% chance to apply Weakened Curse, which decreases the target's magic melee and ranged defense by 250. Okay, Dexterity, Wisdom, hit chance, weaken chance, lowered defense. Interesting. And then we got the resistance daggers. Okay, so lowering distance, increasing crits, and then yeah, increased physical damage. Not too impressive for the daggers though. Longbows. Grant Elon, Longbow of Blight. Upon Nature's Blessing use, heal 40% of base damage, plus 135 health per 6 seconds. Healing is doubled when it rains. Oh, so every time I need to use Nature's Blessing, which I use a lot, I'm basically gonna heal like I heal with Invigoration Salvation. It's heals 50% of the health for per second for 6 seconds. It's not a lot. It isn't a lot, but still, like, that means with the 2, I've got 2 overheals. This is only 40%, but then increases with 135 per second for 6 seconds. Healing is doubled when it rains. That's a really funny one. Healing is doubled when it rains. Okay. Dexterity, Wisdom, cooldown speed, passive skill healing. Passive skill healing. So any heal that we do passively, that would be Vampiric, right? Vampiric, we place a curse one, and everybody that hits that player or that mob or the boss with the curse on will get passively healed. So the heal that other people would get from hitting my Vampiric would become greater. That is interesting. That's a new perk. Passive skill healing. Interesting. Holy crap. Supreme Longbow of the Resistance. Wait, already the Resistance one? Dexterity, Wisdom, max health, crit hit. Okay. And Witch Worshipping Mabo. Ensnaring Arrow changes to a location directional skill. On hit, deals damage to equal 130% of the base damage. Explodes in 3 seconds to bind enemies within 3 meters from the target and deal the same damage. If the target is killed before the explosion, it explodes immediately. Bosses are immune to bind and become oppressed instead. I feel it sounds, because it's an AoE bind, right? To enemies within 3 meters from the target. But it's a delayed. So if a group is grouped up and you basically shoot one and they all run away from the target you shoot, then it's only gonna bind the target itself. Now that is really, really specifically to run away at that time, right? But okay, that is interesting. If you kill the player while using a Ensnaring Arrow, that basically means it explodes instantly and traps instantly, and that would be a better use of this perk. And that is pretty interesting though. And then Arc of Lunar, so yeah, only 3 bows that is in here. Crossbows, we got Cobazons, Crossbow of the Eclipse. When attacking during the day, increases attack speed by 1% and bonus damage by 2 for 2 seconds. That's not a lot, but it's crossbows, so that's still pretty good. And when attacking at night, reduces the target's movement speed by 2% and damage reduction by 2 for 2%. Attacks up to 15 times. So that's also for the attack speed and the bonus damage then. So bonus damage 15 times 2, that's going to be 30 bonus damage and 15% attack speed, right? If I read this correctly. That is pretty huge. And then at night, you're going to have reduced movement speed by 30% and damage reduction of 30 as well. That is pretty interesting. Perception, dexterity, stamina regen, critical hit chance. Okay, that's pretty cool. Malakar. We got base damage 2.5% for all party members within 16 meters. Sounds like something you would need or want. Because it's 60 meters. That's a big range. Something you want for a raid composition, guys. The base damage of 2.5%. If it would be solo player, I would be like, that's too low for a solo. Because the Greatsword already had like 14.4%, right? Increased damage. But because it's for everybody in your party, for a raid composition, this would actually be a really good fit. And it has dexterity, wisdom, cooldown, speed, mana, cost, efficiency. So that's actually pretty cool. It's not it's a self buff as well. But it's actually pretty cool. Kind of like that one. Silver Reaper. Okay. That is not useful. Because I cannot read Chinese or Korean. So the description reads as follows. Gain 25 stacks of soul harvest when an enemy being attacked dies within 10 seconds. So you gain 25 stacks of soul harvest if you kill somebody. Within 10 seconds. So once you start attacking the person, he needs to die within 10 seconds to actually gain the 25 stacks. Each time you make a projectile attack, unleash 1 stack of fire projectile for 35% base damage. That's actually pretty cool. This means this is kind of a sniping weapon. Like you kind of need to make sure that, okay, this target is on low health. So if I contribute to this kill, he's gonna die within 10 seconds. And you get the 25 stacks of soul harvest. Plus then every time you make a projectile attack, you're gonna launch 1 stack fire projectiles at him. That is really, really cool. That's actually a pretty cool one as well. So yeah, that's the crossbows, guys. The wands, we're gonna need to swap over to here and click it in. Excavator, Radiant Scepter, the wand I got at the end of tier 1. It took me so long to get this one, the first excavator wand. So let's see what this one says. We're using swift healing on a target below 30% health. Apply a shield equal to 450% of the base damage, plus 1,500 cooldown 30 seconds. That is actually really, really nice, but also so situational again. Because you kind of don't want to get people at 30% of their health, because that means they're one-shots in PvP. Like if somebody falls below 30% health, or it needs to be a tank, or a really high HP melee player, then basically they can get one shot almost by so much. Like it's gonna be a second that they're gonna die. And you need to wait for that before you can swift heal them to then apply the shield, right? The shield is really, really cool. If it would say 50%, I would think of using this. Because right now I'm kind of if we look at the skills, I'm more of Healing Touch and then basically Nature's Blessing. Just pop it up, a couple stacks of these and Nature's Blessing, and bam, 36,000 health in 5 seconds. That's basically how it works, guys. Like you pop 3 stacks on him and Nature's Blessing, and he's getting 35,000 health in a couple seconds. It's freakishly incredible. So I don't really see the use. So go back to that. I don't really see. The shield is incredible. It is every 30 seconds, and you do have 3, if you get the upgrade, you do have 3 swift healings. So if you swift heal somebody and then switch to another player, swift heal that person again, that person will never get the shield. Again, making it really situational. Like only one, if out of the 3 heals that you can do, only one player is gonna get the benefits. And then you need to maintain that cooldown, because if you want to keep the cooldown and want to make sure that like you place that shield on your tank or a really squishy one, you don't want that shield to pop off whenever you don't want it. Like it's really situational. I'm not gonna go for it. Silver Reaper sentence, again something we can't read. Okay, Silver Reaper sentence. Okay, so I looked it up what it actually is saying, because yeah, I can't speak that language. When Touch of Despair hits, there is an 80% chance to reduce all receiving skill recovery by 99.99%. So basically 100%, well, it's not 100. You can have the 0.001% chance that you can still heal. And apply Weaken Effect for 200% base damage when receiving heal recovery effects. So you basically place a Touch of Despair on an enemy, and then it has an 80% chance to proc the reduced receiving skill recovery by almost 100%. And applying Weaken Effect for 200. So every time a player, his Ametoi heals him, because that is a receiving heal recovery, it's a recovery effect, an Ametoi heal. Every time the Ametoi will heal him, or another player will heal him, he will get another Weaken Effect. So you're placing Touch of Despair, that's going to be a Weaken Effect. You're going to lower all, chance to lower all his healing, and every time he does want to heal, you're going to place another Weaken Effect on it. So that's basically 2 Weaken Effects for the price of 1. That might be interesting for Fury. That might be interesting for Fury. I wonder if it's better than Devon's. I think Devon's still is a lot better. We'll have to check out between the base damages that the effects do, the Weaken Effects do, but well, for PvP at least, is definitely interesting. That's a lot of healing reduction. And that's going to be for the duration of Touch of Despair, I presume. So yeah, that's really, really cool. And then Supreme Wand of the Resistance, actually only 2 wands. We got a Healing Wand and then a DPS Wand. Pretty interesting, pretty straightforward. We got the staffs, so let's look at those. Eridus, Immolated Void Staff. Increased base damage by 12%, so it's a little bit lower than the Greatsword one. If the user is stationary for 3 seconds, it's easy to obtain this one. So every time you stand still for 3 seconds, you basically get an increase of 12%. For world bosses, that's going to be incredible. Wisdom, Strength, Weaken Chance, Attack Speed. The Weaken Chance, if that was... well, it doesn't matter, because if you use Staff, you're probably going to go for this Staff as well anyway. Because look at the base damage. All the staff skills, every weapon skill is based off base damage. So you want to go for a level 12 Galantia Spire, 284, because this is 255, 230, 240, 245. So the base damage, the max damage output for the heroic is still the highest. So definitely a trait I'm interested in unlocking and placing into my staff. I think it's even better than the Fire Dagon. Yeah, Dagon. Fire staff skills increased by 5%. Burning damage increased by 15%. So burning damage increased by 15%. But that's rather specific, because you do frost damage, you do ice damage, you do lightning damage with a staff. This basically increases every type of damage by 12%. So I think this is definitely going to be easier and really easy to obtain. So yeah, definitely something I would see myself going for. Supreme Staff of the Resistance. Okay. We got Talus Incandescent Staff. When stunned, trigger Petrification, freeze for 1 second to protect the user. So you're gonna freeze yourself for 1 second every time you get stunned. Cooldown 24 seconds. That's actually pretty cool for PvP. So the moment somebody stuns you, you're gonna be frozen for 1 second, but the dude is also gonna hit you after he's gonna do his opening move on you while he stuns you. Like it's stun, blam, 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 right? So for 1 second, you basically his first initial hit, like if it's a weaken or anything that he does after his initial stun, is basically, yeah, you're protected. So that's really cool. I would even give it a 2 second one. A 2 second protection. I would even go that far. Cooldown 24 seconds, so every half a minute you can protect yourself for 2 seconds. I think though that wouldn't be all that bad actually. And then Witch Worshiping temptation. Salvation chain changes to witch worshipper's temptation. On skill hits, has an 80% chance to apply fear, seduction to a target, making the target follow the caster for 4 seconds and increasing PvP damage taken by 15 seconds. This is gonna be a fun one, guys. So basically, you have an 80% chance with the chain to... The chain basically, I think it basically pulls a friendly towards you. I think. Salvation chain, it pulls a friendly towards you. Now it basically means that if you pull it on an enemy, you can pull a healer out of his group for 4 seconds. If you have Morph, I don't know how fast he will be moving. Is he going to be walking? Is he going to be running? Is he going to be glitching as a Morph is faster than the run speed? I don't know. But you can say to your team, like, okay, I'm picking out the healer. Everybody focus on the target because he's going to get 15% increased damage while on the PvP. And he can't do anything for 4 seconds because he's feared, right? I'm going to need to build silence resist, fear resist, collision resist, stun resist. Holy crap, this is annoying. There's so much I need to build for. Holy crap. And the rest one is the Abyssal Fochi. So yeah, those were the staffs. The spears, guys, Calanthia's Transfixion, of course. We got Junoboat's Extra Smoldering, Rensur. Upon using Blood Leech Aura, creates a flame zone that deals 120% of base damage. Damage per second for 5 seconds to targets within the area. Targets create a flame zone of the same size. Applies Ignite effect on critical hits. Ooh, that is actually pretty cool. So for 5 seconds, I'm creating a flame zone, right? A Blood Leech Aura zone, but then a flame zone. I'm gonna do damage to people. Those people are gonna create a flame zone of their own on their size. Now I'm wondering, because it applies Ignite effects on critical hits, I'm wondering if the people taking damage from the people that created their own zone, are they gonna get a zone as well? Because if this is the fact and you can get a lot of crits, this means that your zone for, in the area of your Blood Leech, if it links to everybody and everybody ignites, it's only 5 seconds, so it's gonna spread out, right? That's kind of how I'm seeing it. It's gonna be a field of circles spreading out to the outside, everybody burning, everybody taking blood damage. And healing you, because it's Blood Leech Aura. Blood Leech Aura heals you. That is an interesting one. That's definitely, it's Junoboat, it's definitely one that I want to test. Fortitude, Strength, Max Hit, Critical Hit Chance. So it's kind of for a tanky melee build. Okay, pretty interesting. Supreme Polar Arm of the Resistance. Oh, we got another one. Okay. Witch Worshipper, Corrosive Curse on Predator. Skill hit has an 80% chance to weaken the target, which applies melee defense minus 600 for 3 seconds. Okay, so lowered melee defense for spear users. Fortitude Perception, critical hits, cooldown speed. Yeah, that's definitely PvP wise. Fortitude Perception, that means like tankiness and basically hit for perception. And then critical hit and cooldowns. Yeah, really, really nice one. And then we got the Orbs, guys. Now, Orbs I'm not gonna look into, because simply, I don't know what the Orbs do, what skills they have. When using Summon Constellation, the Milky Way skill can be used one time once within 6 seconds. Okay, I have no idea what the Milky Way skill is. We got the Supreme Orb of Resistance. Talos is dropping one. Upon using Distorted Veil, applies a 40% chance efficient Distortion Veil to nearest ally without Distortion Veil within 5 meter radius from the target. If there are no allies within 5 meters radius, amplifying the efficiency of the Distortion Veil of the target by 50%. I have no idea what this means. And then Azure Nexus Sphere, that is tier 2. Okay, after Temporal Leap effect ends, reduces the damage taken by 40% by 2 seconds. Temporal Leap is the blink. Basically, the orbs can make you blink from one point to another point. So after you blink, after completing space transition, reduce damage by 40% for 1 second. Okay. Cordy is gonna drop one. Boost Guardian Defense Wall Health. I think that's the giant shield that you drop. Collision immunity to party members within range. That is actually pretty cool. And it applies collision push, 80% chance. Push them outside of the range. If it's strengthened with 2 or more orbs, applies collision immunity to party members within range. That is actually pretty cool. Shield health, 16%, perception 10. Shield health. So that's another perk we can go for. Okay, passive healing and shield health. Okay, interesting. Electrum Orb. I'm looking at the tier 2s because you can extract those skills, guys, and it might have interesting skills. It doesn't have any skill on this one. Activate an orb effect, increases the duration of the orbs within 30-meter radius for 0.5 seconds. Does not sound good at all. Manticus is dropping an orb. Upon summoning an orb, generates 3-meter radius area of thunder. After 2 seconds, a random enemy location within 6 meters of radius summoned orb that deals 300% of the base damage. So it's gonna hit people that you have no control over. That's basically what it's saying. Range, 16%, wisdom, critical hit chance. Pretty interesting. And then Magic Harmony. Attacking with an orb effect reduces remaining stellar dash cooldown by 3%, activating up to 5 times per second. Stellar dash is again the blink that you can do in this game. It's dashing, basically. Dexterity, wisdom, critical hits. I do presume, I'm not really sure. Sphere of the Black Anvil. And Tevent 1. Applies a consuming aura for 10 seconds to enemies first hit by Star Destroyer or the nearest enemy within 6 meters when a supernova collapse area is generated. Oh, supernovas, Star Destroyers, Milky Way. Like, holy crap, they're going into space with this one. Enemies within 3 meters of aura range have 80% chance to receive damage equal to 9% of the base. Apply weaken effect that increases debuff duration stacked by 12%. Stacks up to 5 times. So that's 60, that's 70% debuff duration. Holy crap. Or do perception range. And then heroic is gonna be tier 1. We cannot extract the tier 1 talent, so not gonna look at that. And that is gonna be it for all the weapons coming to the game, guys. And that leaves us to the next. Armor pieces. Let's take a look at all the armor pieces. Blood Knight Assassination Hood. So Blood Knight sets. Critical hit chance, 250. Critical damage, 15% of critical hit. Critical damage, 1.5% for 3 seconds. Stacks up to 10 times. So in total, you are getting... what, 15% on top of 50%, 30% critical damage. If I read this correctly. Yes, I read this correctly. So 30% increased critical damage, guys. That is pretty huge. This already sounds like a set I can make into any damage build that I want to, depending on what we can get from it. But yeah, pretty interesting. We got the Demonic Beast Hunter Tracking's Mask, Dexterity Perception, no skill on it. We got Divine Apostles Radiant Hats. What is it? Healing? 2 sets, 30% increased healing. That is so fucking big. Oh, sorry. That is huge, guys. Passive skill healing. So passive skill healing again. Plus 30% shield block penetration chance for all allies within 5 meters. So I'm getting 30% more passive healing. So again, vampiric aura. Or vampiric effects that people hit. So that's going to increase with 30%. And then shield block penetration chance for allies within 5 meters is 15% up to 6 players. So basically, if you are an anti-tank party, again, lowering the defense, lowering the shields, lowering, like, holy crap, and more shield penetration chance. Yeah, it is actually pretty useful. That's 2 elements already that can make a party go after tanks. They kind of wanna get rid of all the tanks and make them a little bit more squishy this way. So that's pretty interesting. 2 sets, 30%. That's actually really interesting. Forgotten Monarch Steel Helmets, heavy attack chance, plus 30 per 10 strength. Oh, so most build towards 90 at least. You can build to 100, so 90 is gonna be the... So that's 9 times 30. That is gonna be 270 extra heavy attack chance. On heavy attack, increases heavy attack damage by 25% for 3 seconds. Yeah, I do. And then heavy attack chance in here, max health, perception strength. Yeah, this really feels like a spear or spear greatsword build, guys. That's pretty cool. Lightning Slayer Mask evasion set. 150 when hit. 20% chance to increase evasion by 50 for 2 seconds, stacking up to 4 times. So that's, again, 200 extra. So that's going to be 350 evasion if you're getting a lot of hits, right? And in PvP, you're getting a lot of hits. 350 base, increased heavy evasion. Decreases the endurance of nearby enemies within 5 meters by 150 up to 6 enemies. when using a movement skill. Increases evasion by 600 for 1 second. Cooldown 10 seconds. So that is for 1 second. 300. What was it? 300. Yeah, that's 950 evasion, guys. For 1 second after using a dodge. And you're gonna lower when using a movement skill. Increase evasion. Decrease the endurance of nearby enemies within 5 meters by 150. So basically, by having this set on, you decrease the endurance by 150. Okay. Being able to make more crits, right? Because it's gonna be mostly... This is, I feel like, dagger crossbow users, something like that. Moonlit, Starlight, Hoods, mana cost efficiency, 8%, max mana 2000. So that's 2 sets. Shield health, burst 30% shield health received plus 10%. Shield health is per 30%. Shield health received is plus 10%. Okay, shield health. So I give a shield to another player. That shield health. So shields now are gonna have health as well. Receive 10%. That's one I don't really get. Interesting one though. If you have the Cordy wand, the shield will give you yeah, the Cordy is it Cordy? Yeah, Cordy, I think. Yeah. It gives you immunity to CC for a couple seconds, right? If you increase that shield, then it becomes even, and you increase the shield as well with the Cordy wands. I do presume. Let's quickly passives. Where is it? Cordy Blessing, become immune to bind, petrification, silence, sleep, stun, and fear for 2 seconds when you cast invisible wall, and the effect is boosted by 50%. So you're gonna increase your invisible wall health, and then with the actual sets, because we will not looking at weapons anymore, we will looking at sets. With the actual sets, Moonlets, yeah, you're gonna increase that shield by 30% even more, and shield health will receive 10%. Holy crap, if that is additive, then it's at 80% increased shield on top of the immunity. That is actually pretty huge. That is actually pretty huge. Noble Hood of the Resistance gear, and a Righteous Visor of the Resistance, that is tier 3. So 2 resistance gear. Steel Wall Guardian Knight Visor, max health 2500, melee ranged endurance, plus 200. Okay, so the rogue set is gonna lower it by 120. So that means I'm still getting an 80%, 80 for melee and ranged endurance. Increases heavy attack damage resistance, by 0.6% per 1000 max health. And that is plate, this one, right? Yeah, melee defense, ranged defense is pretty high. This might be one that I go for, because I usually go for higher endurance builds, higher defense builds, and like high endurance, high defense, high resists, basically, right? That is interesting. Okay, Valiant Hood of the Resistance, that's also tier 3, and then we've got Ardent. So those are all the gear sets in the game, guys. And then for all you who have spent resources on your upgraded versions of the tier 2 accessories, this is why I have not invested anything into tier 2, the upgraded versions, the tier 2.5 as I call them. It was interesting, but the amount of stats that they gave was really lacking. And I was like, I'm just not gonna invest in it. At one point, there's gonna be tier 3 jewelry. I was just not expecting them to be here already. And they are. So for everybody who didn't invest anything in the upgraded version of the tier 2, congratulations, you just saved up a lot of resources. So what do we got? Abyssal Breath, a strength, collision resist, melee endurance, ranged endurance. Yeah, that already sounds something that I would use. As you can see, Pendant of the Eternal Flames that I am using in my heal build also has endurance and has the collision resist on it. I do have lower and then strength, max health. So strength stats gives you health as well. So that kind of maxes it out a little bit, right? And we've got max health on top of this as a trait instead of mana. So that adds it up again. Pretty interesting. Binding Necklace of Obsidian, Perception, Melee Evasion, Melee Hit Chance, Melee Heavy Attack Chance. Interesting thing. Blackened Crescent Moon, Wisdom Heavy Attack Chance, Critical Hit, Mana Cost Efficiency. Okay, that sounds DPS. Brilliant Celestial Necklace, Dexterity, Mana Regen, Critical Hit, Range. So yeah, that's gonna be range builds. They want to go, I think. And the range is increased. Yeah, is interesting though. But this is heavy attack, critical hit, and mana cost. Yeah, I would go for blackened for DPS. Frost Breath, Necklace, Dexterity, Wisdom, Magic, Heavy Attacks, Chance, and cooldown speed. Okay, Dexterity and Wisdom, Magic. If you don't have the stats yet from the gear, you might want to go for this one for DPS. Because that's cooldown and Magic, Heavy Attacks, Chance as well. It's magic, so it's pretty specific, right? Not every range build will work for this. You've got Greedy, Deception Necklace, guys. Perception, Max Health, Heavy Attack, Evasion. Collision Resists on this one as well. Heavy Attack, Evasion. Okay, interesting. Dexterity, Strength, Critical Hit, Attack Speed. With a Light Whisper Necklace. Not a lot of necklaces. Monstrosity of Sins, Strength, Melee Hits, Melee Heavy Attack, Evasion, Attack Speed. Okay, that's the counterpart then. And that's it gonna be for the necklaces. The bracelets. Abyssal Chain, Dexterity, Strength, Hit, Melee Evasion. Okay. Cursed Vengeful Spirit Bracelet, Wisdom, Strength, Heavy Attack Chance, bonus damage. That's gonna be Daggers and Crossbows. Immortals Rosemary, Perception, Strength, Max Health, Endurance. Yeah, it sounds something that I would use. Endurance is good. Love Endurance, love Max Health, love Perception, love Strength. That might actually be something that I would use. I'll have to check into that. The King's Garden Bracelet, Dexterity, Wisdom, Crit Hit, bonus damage. Bonus damage is again Crossbows and Daggers, mostly, I do believe. Night Shackle Bracelet, Dexterity, Perception, Heavy Attacks, Chance, and Critical Hits. Yeah, that's definitely damage. Radiant Chain, Fortitude, Perception, Melee Endurance, Ranged Endurance. Oh, Ranged Endurance is pretty hard to come by. I'm having 280 on this one, plus Fortitude. Yeah, it might be that I go for this one. Volcanic Heart Bracelet, Wisdom, Strength, Cooldown Speed, Mana Cost Efficiency, Wisdom, Strength, yeah, DPS. More cooldown speed, more Mana Cost Efficiency. Staff users, like Fury, Invocator, Battle Weave, all really have a heavy mana draining, right? So yeah, might be really good for that one. Windy Embrace Bracelets, Dexterity, Wisdom, Perception, Mana Cost. Again, 3 stats, 555. That's pretty good. And then we got Bangle. So that's gonna be it for the bracelets, guys. We got the rings, Abyssal Covenant, Perception, Strength, Hit, Attack Speed, Agonizing Ring, Dexterity, Perception, Attack Speed, Heavy Attack, Damage, Bloodthirsty Ring, Perception, Strength, Attack Speed, PvP, Melee, Heavy Attack Chance. That's really specific. Melee, Heavy Attack, PvP, Melee, Heavy Attack Chance. That's really specific. I wonder if the Heavy Attack Chance, because on the Black Anvil it's like 113, right? So if you would increase it, depending on the stat points that we're increasing as well, it would be 140 something plus. Would I rather have a Heavy Attack Chance 140 for anything, PvE and PvP, or 208 PvP specifically? If you're really only a PvP player, this is more interesting though. Corrupted Ring, Fortitude, Perception, Endurance, PvP, Heavy Attack, Evasion. PvP, Heavy Attack, Evasion. Actually pretty interesting as well. And it has Endurance on it, Perception, and Fortitude. Yeah, might have to look into that ring. Da Vinci's Pledge Ring, Fortitude, Strength, Damage Reduction, Heavy Attack, Damage Resistance again. So we got the PvP Heavy Attack Evasion, and we got Heavy Attack Damage Resistance. 6.5%. Okay. Let's Embrace, PvP, Divine Wrath. Wait, Wisdom, Perception, Magic Critical Hit Chance. Yeah, and then this one is Endurance and Attack Speed. Okay. And Dexterity, Wisdom, Range, Cooldown Speed. Dustbound, a lot of rings, guys, a lot of rings. Strength, Damage Reduction, Melee Endurance, Range Endurance. Okay. Earthbound is Wisdom, Strength, Damage Reduction, Endurance. Eternal Nightmare, Wisdom, Perception, Range bonus damage. Okay, that's crossbow users, because dagger users kind of need to go up close. Shadow Oath Ring, Dexterity, Strength, Crit Hit, Attack Speed. Spiraling Life Ring, Dexterity, Wisdom, Attack Speed, Cooldown Speed. Might actually be good for DPS as well if you're too low on cooldown and attack speed. Venomous Ring, Dexterity, Perception, PvP, Ranged Hit. Bonus damage, so yeah, this kind of concludes all the specific hits. We got the PvP ranged, melee, and magic hit chance. But it was heavy attack for the other one, right? White Nightmares Reaper Ring. Dexterity, Perception, Hit, Crit Hits. That's a lot of rings, guys. That's pretty interesting. The belt. Let's see what we got here. Ancient chants, strength, max health, damage reduction, endurance. Okay. Belt of hypocrisy and contempt. Dexterity, perception, evasion, heavy attacks, damage resistance. Again, heavy attack, damage resistance, guys. This might be something that I look into, because I'm seeing that a lot. They really want to lower the amount of heavy attacks you can do in this game, in PvP-wise. So that's actually pretty cool. Perception, max health, heavy attack, evasion, attack speeds. Got wisdom, perception, crit hit, cooldown speeds. Cycle of fear belt, strength fortitude, heavy attack, evasion, skill damage resist. Interesting. Dying spark belt, dexterity, wisdom, crit hit, cooldown speeds. Nature's bonds, dexterity, wisdom, strength, mana regen. Sun King belt, dexterity hit, crit hit, attack speeds. Ooh, hit you need, crit hit you need, attack speed you need, dexterity is always good. It's actually a pretty good belt for PvP, for PvE. And then the earrings, that's the last thing we need to go over. And then we looked into everything for tier 3 that can drop. So Band of Omen, we got dexterity, perception, side evasion, front heavy attack evasion, dark flower, fortitude, strength, side damage reduction, front damage reduction. Okay, interesting. Depraved holy war, dexterity, strength, side evasion, front heavy attack evasion, immortal prayer, perception, strength, front damage reduction, and side endurance. Side endurance, okay. Do we got any with double endurances? Dexterity, wisdom, side evasion, side heavy attack, twilight winds. Yeah, so we already saw twin moon, perception, strength, front evasion, front heavy attack evasion, tyrant, dragon, dexterity, wisdom, side endurance, front endurance. Ooh, interesting. And the blood brights. Dexterity, wisdom, dexterity. Ooh, if it was wisdom, strength, instantly my pick that I would go for. So yeah, there we go, guys. All the weapons, all the armor pieces, all the new jewelry that is coming into the game. Now, I have been building a little bit, and something new coming to the game as well. Your runes will now go to noble. So they're going from precious to noble, meaning they will go to a level 120, guys. So, and then also, you do want to check out, because there is, especially if we look at, kind of a little side note, if we look at the noble chaos runes, guys, there is a lot to pick from the chaos runes. Skill damage boost, buff duration. What else? Magic heavy attack evasion, skill cooldown, mana cost, healing. Healing from passive skills. Passive skill healing is in here. Heavy attack chance, buff duration, skill damage boost. I think we already saw that one. Skill damage resist, mana cost, efficiency, healing received. Those are not new. Passive skill healing. Healing from passive skills plus 6%. Shield health 7%. Shield health received plus 6%. So if your shield health is 7%, now I get it. Now I get it. So you can receive a bigger heal if you have this buff, bigger shield if you have this buff on you, and you can also have like a 7% more bigger shield. So you can increase the shield and you can increase how much shield you actually get. Okay, now I get him. So yeah, definitely interesting. A lot with the new perks, guys. A lot of diversity that we can get from this gear. So this leaves me to, well, you can see here, I've already been kind of theory crafting a little bit on a DPS build that can kind of work through everything. But yeah, PvP heal biz, guys, let's go over it. Let's theory craft around it. I'm gonna need to check out everything. I kind of made a build yesterday, a little bit, but now that I read everything, we need to rebuild, I think. So this is the build that I decided on, guys. A little bit different from the other biz that I had. And the other biz, I was using the belt instead of the necklace or the earrings. But I find for a little bit of a trade-off, we are getting a lot more back. And one of the main things I wanted to do with this build is go buff duration, guys. And if we compare the stats with the build I have right now, max health 27,000. So we're giving up a little bit of health, like 1,000 health in total, even 900 health in total. We're giving up, but we are gaining almost 700 more, 1,000 more mana for that one. So that's pretty good trade-off, right? Buff duration from 51% that I have right now to 103%. This is one thing that I wanted to build in really big, and I can lower it a little bit as well. So if I would right now in my PvP heal that I have equipped right now, I am using the skill damage boost on the red gems, right? Skill damage boost 334. On the new one, I'm using the buff duration 4.2% as the chaos ones, which brings my skill damage down to 262. So it is bringing my skill damage down, but I am getting the buff duration. If I notice that my buff is like way longer than I actually need it to be, but I need it to be longer than 50% that I have right now, it's not working. I can't do what I want to do. I can still lower them out, and that would be like 2 times 4.2%. That's 8.4%. That would still leave me with 59.3%. So that's still really high. So then I can actually increase my healing that I'm doing right now. But I kind of want to go into the max that I can get out of buff duration in my build that I want to go for. So we landed on that. That is a huge increase, right? 51 to 103%. Buff duration 19%. We're going to 34% minus buff duration, so almost doubling it. So that's really good as well. If we look at the cooldown speed, 37%, we're going into 51%. So that's really good. Attack speed is going up a little bit, 1% and 1.1%. Not really all that fancy, but it means Clay Salvation is going to be cast a little bit faster. My Flash Wave is going to be cast a little bit faster, right? So that's pretty good. Mana cost efficiency is going down 31% to 27%, but I'm also getting more mana. So I'm kind of leveling out those two in that regard. Range 24 meters. I am going lower on range, so I'm going to need to be a little bit closer to my buddies to actually heal them. And then healing 131%, guys. We come from 116%, so that's a nice boost on top of the actual healing that we get, right? Damage reduction, 68. We're actually going to 62, so not really that much lower. And, well, damage reduction is mostly for bow and dagger users, right? Because if you get a hit for 10,000 from a greatsword, it's only going to lower the 10,000 with 62 points. That's not a lot. That's still 9,938, right? That I'm still going to receive. If a crossbow player or a dagger player hits me for, like, say, let's do 200, he's only going to hit me for 128. So that's a whole lot big of a difference on the damage that I receive, right? So damage reduction, not really something that I'm looking into. But if I got a little bit, it's okay. Skill damage resist, 298. 298, so remains the same. 23% skill damage reduction, so that's really nice. Then critical damage resist. So now critical damage resist is in the game as well. Decrease the damage received from critical hits. Increase the critical damage. However, the damage does not go lower than the base damage of the critical hits. So if you have a critical hit, that means you have the max amount of damage that you can do with your weapon. That's a critical hit. Now critical hit on a heavy attack means you're going to do the max amount of damage you can do on that heavy attack, right? Critical damage means that it's gonna lower the amount of decrease the damage received from the critical hits increased by critical damage, right? So if they do a critical hit, then it's gonna lower the amount of critical damage that they do. So really good that I have 21%. Then we have heavy attack damage. So we're gonna lower that heavy attack that they can do on me even lower with 38%, guys. 38.5%. So yeah, it's a new skill. The Steel Wall Guardian set actually gives me 15.6%. And that is from the health that I have. So that's also why I want to go kind of to the 26%. And that's also why I'm kind of doubting that I might have a lot of magic endurance in here, that I might actually go in more into max health. We'll have to see how that flows, right? But that's the resonance effect that I need to change out. So yeah, we're gonna have to see left and right how that fares later on in the game. We do have melee endurance, 3k, then 3.4k range endurance, and almost 3k magic endurance. So I'm happy with those because we come from 2.5, 2.5, 2.6. So we're almost increasing our endurances with 500 points, guys. So that's really, really good. For the resist, 1300, 1200. I'm not sure why it's silence 700. It should be silence 1400. So let's quickly reload and see. Yeah, I'm not really sure why it's lower all of a sudden. It should be 1400. That's what's in my build right now. So we are going with 1400 collision, 1340 weaken, and we're removing stun resist, and we're going for silence resist right now. So we removed stun resist from the build, and we went into silence resist here. This is also why it's silence resist here. Stun resist should be way higher in this build, but I'm already built kind of towards it, right? And then if we continue on from the resists, we go to the defenses, 3.9, 4K, 4.1K. If you look where we come from, 3.2, 3K, 3.2. So we're increasing with 1,800 here on these two. So that's a huge amount of increase, decrease of damage done. Decrease the damage taken from ranged attacks, magic attacks, or melee attacks, right? And that's a huge amount of damage taken less. So that's really, really nice. That's 3,000. On our build right now, that would be 4,000, guys. 4,000 less damage taken from attacks. That is really, really nice. Anyway, guys, this is the build I'm going for. Let's quickly go through it. The Calentia's Doctrine of Chaos. Your heals get calculated off the max amount of weapon damage. And, well, Calentia's Doctrine has 200. The rest is all lower, even in Tier 3. They did say that Heroics will always be the best weapon. So that means they will always have the max amount of damage. This is also why I presume with the next tier, Tier 4, it might be possible that they're going to be leveling up to level 15, something like that. Rend Alon, of course, with Natured Blessing use, heals 40% of the base damage, 135 health per second for 6 seconds. Healing is doubled when it rains. Definitely really nice. Another overtime heal that we can get on here. Steelwall Guardian, Knight of Visors. We got the headset because it's collision resist and melee endurance, guys. Fortitude and wisdom. We need a lot of fortitude. We need a lot of wisdom. We need a lot of perception, right? So those are the 3 traits I'm really looking into. You get a little bit of strength, that's always nice as well. But fortitude, wisdom, and perception is what I'm looking into. So Wings of the Prophet, weaken resist, heavy attack evasion, endurance, heavy attack damage resist. So again, damage resist, guys. Heavy attack damage resist, heavy attack evasions in here. We got the regrets, because if you look at the plate for, where is it? The steel wall. It's fortitude, strength, max health, heavy attack, evasion. So heavy attack evasion is pretty good, but I need, as you can see, I've got 24 points into perception. I need a lot of perception to be able to get to the 80 to get the 3% more buff duration, right? And perception on its own, every time I invest a point, you can see it's going down, right? So having 80 means also that I can get a lot more out of my buff duration, right? And that's kind of like my main investment that I wanted to do. With the chest, I could get the most amount of perception in the build. If we, again, look at the other chest, Steel Wall also has fortitude and strength, and I don't really need strength. That's why it was an easy pick to leave out, in my book. Because I could also build fortitude on the heroic perks, buff duration, and endurance, and then in the heroic traits, more endurance, giving me 320 endurance, guys, in total. So that is really, really nice, right? We could go heavy attack evasion in the bottom as well with lower endurance. I'll have to see what heavy attack evasion actually does, right? If it is like maybe broken, then I might have to change later on. But this is basically what I'm going for right now. We do have dexterity in our build, which is not something I actually want in my build. So on the gloves, we got fortitude. Again, want high amounts of fortitude, because fortitude means resists and defenses and endurances, guys. Fortitude, basically, if I lower it, you can see that my, it's resists and endurances. Goes down a lot. So I want to get that as high as possible. And then we can get, where were we? Fortitude, dexterity, max health, good. And then ranged endurance again. So really, really good. And if we look at all the rest, dexterity, hit chance, divine, dexterity, wisdom, evasion, attack speed. Like there were a couple interesting ones here, but nothing that compared to the amount of perception we could get from this one. That's also, again, I calculated like, okay, this chest versus these boots versus this. And the chest for me came out as best. Definitely versus the, if I would do this and then go Calentia's, we can see here 10 strength and damage reduction. I don't need strength. I need perception in here. Again, why I went for the chest piece, the heroic chest piece, to get to the 80 perception, guys. So the pants, fortitude, perception, damage reduction, and ranged endurance. So on the headpiece, we're getting melee endurance. On the pants, we're getting ranged endurance. And then more ranged endurance on the gloves. And here we've got on the boots, We got dexterity, strength, movement speed, heavy attack damage resist. Again, the heavy attack damage resist. I kind of really wanted to build for that, just see what it would go. And we get increased heavy attack damage resist from the 4 set. So that's definitely why I wanted to include pieces that have that to increase it as big as possible, right? For the jewelry, we got the Abyssal Breath, Strength, Collision Resist, an obvious choice, and melee endurance and ranged endurance, guys. We got Fortitude, Perception, melee endurance, and ranged endurance as well. Going for collision resistant here, skill damage resist, debuff duration. We got skill damage boost and buff duration, and a max health on this one. The Corrupted Ring, Fortitude, Perception, Endurance, PvP, Heavy Attack, Evasion, like all traits I kind of want to go for, especially like, again, the Fortitude and the Perception one, and then giving flat Endurance on all 3, definitely good. Giving me that Heavy Attack, Evasion on all 3, also good, right? And then we got in the traits even more Heavy Attack Damage Resist as well, 3%, guys, from this one. We got more buff duration, we got more skill damage boost, so definitely a ring I wanted to take. And then Da Vinci Pledge Ring, Fortitude, Strength, Damage Reduction, Heavy Attack Damage Resistance. Now, I didn't really want to go for the damage reduction, but it had Heavy Attack Damage Resistance on it, and then Fortitude and Strength. Kind of wanted to get to the 70, because 70 will give me melee defense and range defense. This is why I kind of definitely wanted to get to the 70, and I had to use 3 points. So that's definitely really good. We need a little bit of strength in our build. And then for the belt, I used to include the heroic belt, but I kind of changed over, because the heroic belt had more fortitude behind it, and a little bit more perception behind it. But we can still, more easily build towards, because this one had fortitude and the necklace had perception. Because with the 10 perception from the necklace, or from the earrings, we basically could get to the 80, else I was stuck on 70 with the previous build. That's why I'm using the earrings now, and I was using the belt in the previous build, or previous build for me. So perception again, 8 points, max health 720, heavy attack evasion again, and then attack speed 6.3. Don't really care for the attack speed in here. Heavy attack evasion, definitely good, because collision resistance, skill damage resist, and debuff duration. I could change it out to maybe weaken resist or stun resist, depending on how the meta flows. I can even go for max health, right? Giving me increased critical damage resist even more. So yeah, definitely worth it for that one. And then the earrings of the corrupted Stellarite, perception, endurance, wisdom, fortitude, strength, so we can get 3 stats on this. So basically we can get 4 stats on this one. That's also why the earrings were a little bit better than the belt, because with the belt we would be going into other stats like mana cost efficiency or something like that, right? And then we got the critical hits increase, 160, 120, 120. Not really sure the bonus damage, back bonus damage 20, side bonus damage 16. I'm not really sure if the bonus damage includes the healing. If I would heal people from the back for 20 more. And hits, I don't really need an heavy attack chance. If you don't have enough crits, it doesn't really matter if you're gonna heavy attack a lot. So that is basically the build that I'm going for. For the runes, guys, if I clicked on it, you can see which runes I'm going. A lot of silence resist, magic endurance, and weaken resist. Almost on all of them. Healing increase, weaken resist, magic endurance. Healing, weaken resist, magic endurance. Silence resist, triple. Weaken resist, healing, magic endurance. So yeah, there's a kind of an above duration magic endurance healing. So that's why I'm getting also like the 131% healing, right? That's kind of the build I'm going for. I also made DPS builds for those interested. So I made one build, the Frost Cloak, the Frost Blade Cloak, the headpiece with Wisdom cooldown, heavy attack, mana cost, and dexterity. And then in the bottom I got defense, Blood Knight 4 set, as you can see here. So the 4 set, I'll click on it so you can see anything that I'm using in there. And then Blackened Crescent Moon Necklace, the Volcanic Heart Bracelet, Eternal Promise, Agonizing Ring. We got the Sun King Belt and the Twin Moons Earring. Now with this build and these stats on these builds, I basically have stats that I can use across any DPS build, guys. PvE wise. Like I'm leaving out all of the resists, I'm leaving out all of the evasions and the endurances. It's totally buff duration, debuff duration, max mana or max health. Like this entire set that I have right now, the armor pieces all have max health, the jewelry all have max mana. So for my melee build, I'm getting to 34,000 health with then the Adventus sword, I'm getting, you can see 36,000 is the max. I'm getting more damage per 1,000 health, 34,000 health, almost 35,000 health, guys, that I'm getting. Max mana, we got a lot of mana for a melee build, not really necessary, but I wanted to make a universal build. A build that could work for any DPS class. It's not gonna be min-max, like there is a DPS class that is way better. There's DPS gear in here that's way better for daggers and crossbow users. But like the range builds that I kind of want to go for, the melee build that I want to kind of go for, like anything works. Look at the uptimes, guys. 81% buff duration, really good. Cooldown speed, 78%. We got 66% attack speed, mana cost efficiency, 50%, right? We are getting 2,000 critical, boss critical, and 2,200 boss melee crit, heavy attack chance. So really good stats. If we go to staff 1, it's the exact same build, the exact same setup of items, with the exact same traits on them, the exact same resonances on them. Only the two weapons are split up. We're getting really nice stat distribution. We're getting 24,000 max health, 26,000 max mana. Now this is kind of where you can min-max way more. If I would remove the max health with max mana out of the range builds, the staff wand, the cross wand, and staff cross, I would be getting more damage out of it. Because I want to make a build that fits kind of everything, that's why I made the chest plate, the armors, I gave max health, the jewelry, I gave max mana. So it can also work for range builds or magic builds, right? That's kind of the train of thought. One build to fit any DPS PvE builds that I can do. And if you look staff wands, 79% buff duration, cooldown speed 87%, mana cost efficiency 78%, attack speed 55%. If we go into crits, we got 1800 boss magical critical hit chance. If we go into heavy attack, boss range heavy attack chance 2200. So we're basically getting the caps of what we need for PvE for heavy attack chance and critical hit rate. No resistances, guys, no endurances. Like, I'm not looking at any of those. It's purely, am I getting enough buff duration? Am I getting enough max mana? Am I getting enough attack speed, mana cost duration? Am I getting enough skill damage boost out of it? Cross wands, the same thing. 2,000 with 22,000 health, 22,000. 83% buff duration, 87% cooldown speed, 60% attack speed, 80% max cooldown. If we're looking at our crit and our critical heavy attack, we see that we are maybe lacking a little bit on the critical hits. A little bit. So we can implement, because we have a lot of magic critical hit, heavy attack chance, 2,400. We can invest a little bit going towards the 1,800, 1,900 and still have like 2,200 heavy attack chance in here. And then if I go to staff and crossbow, I can see that 87% buff duration, 89% cooldown speed, guys, 25k mana, 25k health. We're getting mana cost efficiency 36%, 63% attack speed. We're going into the crit and the crit hit. And the crit heavy attack, 1800 crit hit, guys, 2000 magic heavy attack or ranged heavy attack. This build is basically gonna save me so much lucent and so much resources, because I only need to build one build for my entire DPS setup. If I want to test out the orb, if I want to test out daggers and crossbows, I just swap out the weapons and keep this setup with the amount of resonance on here, with the skill damage boost, the buff durations, with the side hits, side heavy attack, side crits. I'm using max health, skill damage boost and buff duration here, max mana, skill damage resistant buff duration on here. Like all of the stats on every piece of armor, the cloak, the helmets, the jewelry, everything remains the same. The only thing I swap out is the weapons. And it works, guys. It can work. The only thing you do need to swap out is for melee, you're gonna need to be slotting boss melee heavy attack chance, right? Max health. If you then look at, what are we looking at? The necklace. And we're going into staff wands, max mana, boss range heavy attack chance. If we go into cross and wands, max mana, boss magic heavy attack chance. So depending on which build you use, the only thing you're gonna need to swap is the heavy attack chance for bosses. Now I'm not really sure if this is like really good, but I don't want to build 15 different sets, guys. I made that mistake in tier 1. I made that mistake a little bit less in tier 2. I don't want to make that mistake in tier 3. I want to have a build that I can play with, that does damage, that has the proper stats behind it, and that I can just swap out the weapons and then basically go from there. And I think this kind of, plus we have the 4 set, right? Critical hit and more critical damage increase. That's always good for any DPS. It kind of works, guys. It kind of works. Range 26 meters here. We get 25 meters here. 26 meters on staff wand. That's pretty good. 6 meters on melee. Yeah, we don't need that. But again, it works for every build. And that is the most important. And you can get really nice stat distribution. 60, 99, 93, 55. Can't go lower in strength here, sadly enough. Cross wand 53, 91, 87, a little low, but we want to go for 80 perception, 4 to 3% more buff duration. So we could go to 70, but then we would have lower, right? We will only have like 70% buff duration, and cross wand buff duration is pretty important. Staff wands, again, everything 59, 98, 50. Dexterity is pretty hard one on this one because you're using a lot of wisdom on this one in the traits, and then on the traits here as well, Silver Reaper Codex. So yeah, these are my builds, guys. If you want to check out, go to Questlog, and then basically, I'm not really sure if you type in Mloentje, if you come across me. No, I just no. How the hell do you come across me? I'm Mloentje. I have no idea. You should be able to find me in here. Profile. Yeah, I got profile in here. So, yeah, you can look at the builds if you want to, and if you are interested. Guys, I'm gonna end up this episode here. It's probably gonna be, like I said in the start, a really long episode, but I had a lot to talk about. So, yeah, hope you enjoyed the episode. Hope you learned something from this one. And if you liked it, give it a thumbs up. I'll put in timestamps in the description down below, guys, so you can skip through what you find interesting. But like I said, I'm gonna wrap up this episode here. Hope you enjoyed it. If you want to see more of my Codex runs or my Let's Play here in Throne and Liberty, guys, or any tier, everything that's tier 3 is gonna throw at us, I'm definitely gonna take a look at it. Just hit that subscribe button. It would always help out a lot. I do hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.